What's up, guys? Welcome back to the infamous project. This episode is going to be titled While You Weren't Watching. Well, you weren't watching because, well, I wasn't filming, and I've been so busy between car shows, going out to Cali, getting Chuck's 91 GT wrapped up right here in time for Motor City. But between all of that, I've still been very busy in other places. You can see right here, here's my neighbor's Fox, aka LJ, Little John, and this is the one that had the head gasket issue and put the power dyne on it. It's the one that has the HXX pipe that was installed. So there's some videos on this car, and you can see now it's actually looking a little shinier. So in between everything, I stripped the car down for him, and another painter, it wasn't Red Dog, it was another guy locally. His name's Bobby. He actually used to have a shop. Well, he still does have the shop, 2 doors down from my old shop. And yeah, paints his thing. I said, hey man, you want to do a nice driver paint job for my neighbor? So he took the project on. So I stripped it down, all the trim, the mirrors, everything, etc., etc. And it turned out great. He actually just finished wet sanding and buffing the car up the other day. And I gotta say, for a driver, like, this is a pretty good looking car. Don't mind the fact that the wheels and tires are all dirty. We'll get to a reveal when we're done. That's just all the residue from wet sanding and everything else. But that is what we're working on today. You can see I've got primer for trim in my hand because we need to get the trim sorted out. We need to resto the quarter window moldings and get this car back together so LJ can enjoy it. There we go. Black paint always looks so nice and fresh when it's freshly sprayed. And I think, so John won't even come over. I'm like, dude, you don't want to come see your car? He's like, no, man, I'm going to wait till it's all done. So, you know what? So be it, John. You can see he got a new set of smoked diamond clears in the front for it. And here's the window moldings. If you guys remember, this car actually had those covers, and I hate those covers. Guys, please don't buy or use them. So the moldings, they're not horrible. It's gonna be maybe a little challenging to get the line back here. I know there's a guy on Facebook, Greg, something with a K and it ends with a ski. He's redoing these and he gives the option to get rid of this line, which I think is, it's probably easier for him than to try and keep it. But, you know, if it came that way, you know, it's just weird when you see, it's weird when you see the Scott Drake glass for the hatch that don't say Mustang, and it's weird if the line isn't in the molding. That's just my 2 cents, right? So you can see there's some pitting and whatnot on this side. He did get a cowl hood. So this is a steel cowl, and it's a crapshoot, guys. Like, even this, it had a couple little dings and waves that needed to be blocked out and whatever. It definitely was not just a prime and paint, nor is a fiberglass hood. A fiberglass hood, you're blocking for days if you want to try and get them straight. So on this side, you can see some pitting here. This one, the line is actually more defined still. I still got to get all this adhesive off for those stupid covers that they had on. So yeah, that'll be, just roll it all off. But other than that, he did want the Steeda wing, and if you guys are familiar with the Steeda wing, well, the back order is like 6 to 8 months or something absolutely ridiculous. So stock wing stayed on the car for now. Went with a smoked cherry tail light in the back. All right, so that's all good. And right, just gonna have to put the door locks in. Handles are back on. I have to see if I need to do, door frames look pretty good, but I think I'm gonna end up giving them a quick little shot of trim paint as well. So of course, the products that I'm using, all right, SEM trim black. the high build primer slash surfacer, purple Scotch pad, wax and grease remover, and here's all the trim. Here's my painting table. So these guys that go down along the bottoms of your windows or tops of your doors, if you have the factory ones, it's almost like a rubberized coating on there, and sometimes it starts to pit, right? So if you just spray trim paint on the pitted stuff, well, it's still going to look pitted. Hence the high build primer, right? So we're going to hit these with a couple thick coats of this, and then we're going to sand them smooth again, and then we will hit them with trim paint. You can see here, got a brand new windshield cowl, and it's right new out of the plastic, and it's still getting scuffed, and it's still getting primed and then painted. The reason for that is that plastic from China, right? It's not coated, it's not protected from the UV. So you're going to put a brand new one of those on and think, oh, it's already black, I'll just screw it on my car and everything will be good. Well, you know, a year's going to go by and you're going to wonder why it's all sun faded and potentially cracking already, because it's not protected. So paint your fresh purchased trim pieces. That goes for these guys as well, because a lot of people, the clips get broken on the bottom sides of these. If you have these new, those are his original ones, didn't break the clips. You know what I mean? You need to prep them and paint them. And you can see there's a little bit of skim coat there. My flexible polyester skim coat, and just to fill a couple of the small little dings that are on there. I tried to hammer those ones out very carefully, and I did pretty damn good. I was actually happy with how it came out, but I just want it 100% straight. So that's the name of the game. This stuff's going to need a couple coats of primer, and it needs to dry and get sanded. This stuff is just going to kind of probably need one coat of primer, and then, you know, provided I sand everything out good there, and then we'll hit it with trim paint, and that will be that. So with the primer, and this stuff dries super quick, you do want to get it on fairly thick, right? If you're trying to fill little pits and everything else, and you are still going to see some of the pits, just that's the way that the primer is going to sit in there. But I'm going to let this dry. It's going to flash. I'm going to do another heavy coat, right? And then we're going to sand them out smooth, and they're going to look just as good as new. Guys, well, the paint's drying on the other trim, and it's perfect day out today, like 80 degrees. It's humid, but not too humid, right? So just hitting these up with the purple Scotch pad. Look who it is. Wifey pulling up in the M5. So if you guys listen to the latest podcast, you'd know that her Range Rover was in the shop, so she had to drive the M5. Let's see how her experience was. How was your experience?
I missed my car. Where do you want this part?
That's fine. Back to the quarter trim here. So you can see everything is masked off. Sanded it down with 180, and I mean the rubber. Blew it off with compressed air to get any of the dust or debris out of any of the pits. Right, got my polyester fill here. Glazing putty, mix it up, get it in the pits. Be sanding it off and doing kind of the same process that we just did on the trim in terms of primer and everything else. So I have a full video on how I do this, guys. There's tons of different opinions, processes, and ways of doing it. However, let me tell you, I've done it on that car, I've done it on that car, I've done some on that car. These are all cars that have had years and miles put on them, and have not had issues. So trust the process. Of course, the GoPro turned itself off because it was too hot. I'm probably about 45 minutes worth of time, and it'll be about an hour per window, give or take, maybe a little bit more of time in this condition to get them looking good again. So you can see there's not that much filler that's left over after you do the sanding process. Guys, don't be afraid to hit that with 80 grit, 120 grit, 180. I've actually finished this off in 180, and that high build primer is going to fill any of the scratches and the last imperfections. And in fact, this one will do 1 coat of primer, actually 2 heavy coats of primer, and we'll see if there's any other little spots I need to touch up. And if not, then I'm going to block it out with like 400 on the stick, and then just go over it lightly with the purple Scotch pad, and we can hit it with paint. So that's pretty much the process in a nutshell. I'm going to wipe this down with wax and grease remover. I've already blown it off with compressed air, and we'll get some primer on here. All right, guys, so it's like 2 really thick coats of the high build primer. All right, so if we look really, really close, we can see, especially in this line right here, which you got most of the line back, all right, sanding and like 80 grit, pure folded over on a 180 and just kind of bringing that line back. Everything else is looking pretty good, right? So again, this is a driver car. I'm not like trying to put 5 hours in per glass, and poor John ends up paying, you know, $2,500 in the quarter windows of my time and efforts and everything. But these are going to look really, really good in terms of going on the car. They're going to be better than going with an aftermarket window in this case, right? Probably about the same cost, but you're going to have OEM, and it's going to match, it's going to be fresh and look pretty good. So I'm going to let this dry up, and then, like I said, I'm going to block sand it out. That's right, with a block, because we want to make sure that we get the surface all nice and smooth, right? And how you do it is up to you. I'm going to do it with probably like a 320, 400-ish, and then, like I said, just go over it lightly with a Scotch pad after that. And as long as you didn't break through anywhere and you don't see filler, you don't need to add any more filler, you can just go straight to your trim paint and you'll be done. All right, guys, so the primer's had its allotted time to dry, and now I got my little piece of mixing stick and some 320, and I'm just going to block out the molding so that it's smooth, right? And you can see it, you know, the primer does kind of take the contour of some of the texture, or maybe a couple of the pit holes or whatever that you might have filled. So the idea is to smooth everything down, and once everything is uniform and smooth, and provided you don't have to do any more filler or anything, we'll go over it with a purple Scotch pad and hit it with trim paint. As that final coat is drying, well, you can see looks a million times better than it did before. We got our line back. All right, it's amazing what a little bit of elbow grease and everything can do. All right, guys, so it's Saturday morning. Had some friends come into town yesterday, Friday afternoon, so I didn't get to finish up 100% of everything that I was doing on John's car, because we need to get these door frames, door handles painted before the rest of the trim can go on. It was a good opportunity for the trim to cure up overnight. And in fact, I don't even think I'm going to get the trim back on today because, well, you got guests in town and life gets busy. So while they're saying they're getting ready to go into the pool, I'm out here trying to get every little bit of time used up in an efficient manner. Like, I'm not a guy who likes to sit around still. And I was talking with Gary on the podcast. I'm like, man, I really need to do like a day in the life of. Give you guys some insight on how I operate on a daily basis. Anyways, scuffed down, scotch pad, masked up, taped up, wrapped up with plastic, and gonna get these knocked out real quick. And then after that, it'll probably be sitting some more. I still gotta do that driver's side quarter window, then I gotta do the driver's side door frame. I'm probably gonna flip the car around. This stuff doesn't really overspray, which is the nice thing. It pretty much dries as soon as it's on contact. But with that said, I don't want to be doing the driver's side next to my Silver Notch or the E39 M5. I'll flip the car around and then do that side. But just wanted to kind of give you guys the update and show you part of the process. All right, guys, we're back on John's car here, Friday. So I'm trying to knock out stuff. I feel like typically I can be pretty productive on a Friday. And maybe it's just subliminal, so that way I am productive and I can start drinking beer earlier. So the weather's been hot as balls, and a lot of people, they always ask, why do you still work on the ground when you have lifts? And why are you working out in the heat when you have AC? Well, there's a lot of things that are easier to be done on the ground, and lowering a car is one of them. Especially with traditional old coil springs, because that way you can use the jack, you can use the floor, the weight of the car, and it's just simpler. With all the things that are easier to do with a lift, like transmission removal, exhaust, servicing your diff, brakes, but like other than that, like even pulling a motor, most of the stuff, aside from a few bolts on the underside, all happens at ground level. So maybe it's just me, but that's sort of the reality. In terms of the AC, guys, I lived in Dubai for 10 years. The 105 to 110 is honestly nothing. I sweat like a pig, but I'm okay with it. And to be honest, I don't go to the gym. I don't work out. This is my workout each and every single day. I eat what I want, I drink what I want, and I stay slim. So I'm not going to complain. I do eat generally pretty healthy. Let's get back to work. So this side looks the same. When you guys weren't looking, not watching, me not recording, I changed up the look of the car over here. So we got a set of Maker's Garage 18-inch Reimagined Classics, and the car is actually sitting a little nicer on this side, and that's because, well, I took some material out of those H&R springs. So I'm going to time lapse this other side over here so you guys can sort of see how I'm doing it. In this case, because I'm only like dropping them down an inch, I'm actually removing the big nut on the top of the strut here, and I'm dropping the strut assembly down. So all you have to do, take your wheel off, obviously, you remove the little retainer bolt that's holding your brake line against the frame rail, because you need to be able to move that brake line a little bit with this procedure, because you're actually not disconnecting the brakes or the calipers not coming off, none of that stuff. All you have to do is pull that brake line off the frame rail, disconnect the sway bar, pull off this nut, and drop the strut down and out, and it'll give you enough room to pop that spring out. The rear is pretty easy, and although this car with the Maxim Motorsport lower control arms that pretty much hold that diff straight, you got to drop that shock, jack up the other side so that it'll kind of pivot the diff in your favor. Some pry bars, and you can get the springs out. So in case you guys are wondering, I'm taking out 3/4 of a coil in the front and 1.5 coils in the rear. So the general rule of thumb when you're cutting coils in a Fox is that whatever you do in the front, you need to double it in the rear to get yourself an even stance. And the reason for that is just the way that the coils are designed, especially in the rear. That first coil is kind of flat edged, right? And it really does nothing because that first loop is butt up right against here pretty much. So I had to cut through two, because it's so close, I had to cut through, right, both to be able to get the half that I wanted to cut, but that's the 1.5 coils out of the rear, right? So that's about 1 inch. And then in the front, right, 3/4 coil and no isolators. So the isolators actually take up a little bit of room, not much, but they do, right? Probably depending on how worn out they are, they could be anywhere from 1/4 inch, or if you've only got one versus both. This one is the thicker one. This one usually takes up the most, you know, room in the pocket. So, you know, you can gain anywhere from 1/4 inch to probably up to almost 3/4 inch, depending what's going on there, just by removing the rubbers. So I think this looks pretty good. It'll settle down maybe another fraction, maybe another 1/4 inch or so once we hit a couple bumps, but I think that that's going to give John the look that he was after. So let's go ahead, break this wheel loose, and we'll get the front and the rear done and see how this thing is sitting after it's all done. So the timestamp on the camera is 15 minutes since I hit the record button. So that means with my whole intro, ramble, all that stuff, and getting the front spring out, cut, back in, new wheel on, 16 minutes right now. So there you have it. And the reason why, because I know I said this and I didn't actually elaborate on it, the reason why I did it here and not doing like down at the bottom of the strut, this isn't like some ultra low exercise that I'm doing where I'm trying to like preload camber on the bottom of the strut and altering more suspension geometry. We're still technically altering things a little bit by removing some of the coil spring, but for like the inch that we dropped the car down, everything else is pretty much in spec. The only thing that should have really altered here is maybe a little bit of camber. Wouldn't have impacted toe or anything within like a huge reason. Obviously you should still get an alignment or use your quick trick tool after you lower something, but this will get you rolling and driving all right. All that time of season where the GoPro shuts itself off due to overheating issues. Pain in the ass. Anyways, there we go. Nice, level, nice stance. Again, whatever you do in the front, double it in the rear in most cases. And one thing here that I can't believe the painter did, but he's gonna have to fix. Look what he did. Went and painted the damn tailpipes, which to be honest with you, I think I'm actually, I don't know, I'll have to see from the underside, but anyways, they unbolt from up there, so I can give them to him and he'll have to do his thing. It's unreal. Anyways, we'll get it fixed. All right guys, so here's the final result. It's a new look for LJ's little hatch, and you know what? Sometimes an LX hatch can look pretty damn good, I have to say. The wheels, definitely, between the wheels and the stance, and we say this time and time again, it can honestly transform the look of a car. And well, shiny black paint does a really good job at making things look good as well. You know, black when it's clean, it looks real nice. There's a final few little detail items to go over, but other than that, this thing is looking really, really sharp, especially with all the trim and everything else, you know, cleaned up, and right, no more of those god-awful covers that were over the quarter window moldings. So I think all that turned out real nice. You know, the tire size, for anybody that's wondering, or the wheels and tires, this is the 4-bolt 18-inch Reimagined Classics from Maker's Garage, 8.5 front, 9.5 rear, or is it 8 fronts, 9 rears? Whatever it is that he offers, guys. And tire sizes, 235/40 in the front, and that's a 275/35, of course, 18 in the rear. And with this stance, I feel like it's kind of the perfect tire size, right? Guys, I'm real happy with it. John actually hasn't even really, he saw it like when it first came back from paint, but it was like completely disassembled. It still needed to be wet sanded and buffed. So he hasn't seen it with the wheels on and lowered and the trim and everything put back together, right? The smoke lights look great. The tinted tail lights look awesome as well. And he wanted to put the chrome 5.0 badges on, but after that last experience I had with Project Menace and the black like peeling off during the first wash, I either got to find a better reproduction, or I have a set of black 5.0 emblems. I'm like, dude, put the black ones on. It'll kind of like go with the, you know, blacked out theme minus the wheels. But either that or just keep them off. I think the car looks super clean the way that it is. So that's it, guys. This is a quick little one on LJ's hatch. So now that his head gaskets are fixed, he's got his supercharger on, he's got his exhaust finally tucked up out of the way and not dragging on the ground anymore, which allowed us to lower the car more. That's why he didn't want to lower the car. He was afraid that he was going to literally just drag every single hump in the road or speed bump that he might come up to. So I think, other than some data logging and getting a proper tune on for the blower now, this should do it, right? A few interior things. I know he wants to do the new seat covers and stuff like that, but cruising down the road, it's going to be one real nice looking car. So there you have it, folks. Thanks again for your support, watching, subscribing, liking, doing all the things, hating, even especially if you hated and you watched this far, then you're a serious hater. But anyways, we'll catch you next time here on the Infamous Project.